Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork down for a while.
Hello and welcome to the Dork Forest. It's live at Nerdmelt at the Meltdown Comics here in Hollywood. Feel free to applaud. Well done, well done. There we go. Yes, it's a really exciting one. But let's do we got Zac working the audio here at Meltdown, which is amazing. Let's just applaud for him because he's right here. And then Patrick Brady, who he never gets to hear the laughter. He never gets to hear the applause because he lives in New York. But he fixes the audio, and Vilmos fixes the website. And Mike Ruekberg sang the song you just heard, and he'll sing again at the end, the Mexican hat dance. Sitting across from me here at the Meltdown Comics, Kevin Eastman, co-creator of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yes, hi, how are you?
And editor, publisher, owner of Heavy Metal. Yay. Allow me to dork out quickly at you, and then we can wrap it up. So I have done more research on this particular interview than I have on anything else, and I have talked to kings. No kings, but and when I say research, it means I've read 3 wiki pages. That's right. Your wiki page, a Teenage Mutant Ninja wiki page. I didn't read Peter's wiki page because he wasn't here. So, is he still living in Massachusetts? Any idea?
Yes, he lives up on top of a mountain in Massachusetts, yes.
Does he own that mountain? Is it a mountain of cash?
I don't know.
Is he Scrooge McDuck?
He didn't waste all his money on fireworks and hookers like I did. So he still got all
Well done, sir. Well done. Hopefully he's in Provincetown buying... No. Anyway, that's a Massachusetts joke. Thanks for paying attention. Okay, so what I did was, we can go several different ways. I could ask the 2 questions that I have, and then I can ask the 40 questions that were posted online today when I said, does anyone have a question for Kevin Eastman? And then you can answer those. And then we could talk about what you enjoy reading in the last half an hour. So, any of that?
All of that. That's fine, really.
Any?
Seriously,
all? It's I have my question, of course. Have you ever read Alfred Hitchcock and the 3 Investigators?
I have not. No.
Okay, there we go. That was good for me. And the only connection we have is that Robbie Rist is a friend of mine. Robbie Rist, who played Oliver in the Brady Bunch. He was also the voice of Michelangelo in the 1990 movie.
Oh, no kidding. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
awesome.
Robbie Rist, Oliver from the Brady Bunch, voice of Michelangelo. Very exciting. All right. So, there has been some talk of... Yep.
Did you know Chuck Lorre wrote the theme song for the first Turtles cartoon show? Yes.
No. Can you sing a few bars?
I can't, not a single one. But it's just funny because we did a part of this documentary shoot recently, and I met a lot of the voice talent, which I didn't meet this gentleman, but met like the Shredder, and he also did Krang, Saki. That's crazy guy. And
did you punch him in the face? Shredder. You're just like, dude.
But, one of the guy that did Donatello, who used to be the head of the Screen Actors Guild, said, "Hey, did you know that Chuck Lorre wrote the theme song for the Ninja Turtles cartoon show?" And I was like, "No, that's awesome."
There are fun facts about the Ninja Turtles that I bet you don't know, that people have asked me at length. They're like, "What does he think about this one thing that happened in the animated?" And I was like, "Probably nothing. He probably doesn't think of." You stay up late?
I've done a lot. I have the most awesome fans in the world, and I love them all, and I really do. But I've done a lot of shows and signings and things, and what I do love about the fans is that the real serious ones actually go so far beyond what's ever been written, and they write their own histories, their own stories. It's like fan fiction.
Oh, the fan fiction business?
It's fantastic.
Is there slash?
It just goes through so many.
Is there creepy slash fan fiction?
There has been some, and there's some pretty funny.
Fair enough. What about Venus de Milo? Is she in it?
Well,
remember the one girl turtle? Anyone? All right.
No.
Here's what I read it in 1987 when my 7-year-old nephew handed me the graphic novel, the dog-eared graphic novel that was your original works.
Yes.
And then, so I got totally sucked into it. And then because I was probably 23 years old, I did not get sucked into the television cartoons and such because I had a life to lead and some booze to drink. But you know what I'm saying? But I love the original. It was really smart and funny and dark and referential and Wiki says that, all right, I'm going there. It says that it was based on things that I don't think it was based on. Was it based on, Cerebus?
Yes, inspired by Cerebus.
It was inspired by Cerebus?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Was it the business model that inspired you, or was it the fact that it was an animal?
Both, actually. Dave Sim with Cerebus, he was a self-publisher, published a black and white comic book, but he was inspired by underground publishers like in the late 60s, early 70s, Rick Griffin, Robert Crumb, the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers, all these guys that were self-publishing. I also discovered those artists and those self-publishers through Heavy Metal Magazine, and I always, even some of my earliest submissions to comics, I didn't send to get jobs doing comics. So I wasn't sending to Marvel and DC. I was sending like Rip-Off Press and Last Gas and Kitchen Sink.
You were always like, I want to go to the little guy and
oh, totally.
Well,
I like the freedom. It was like heavy metal twisted me forever when I discovered Heavy Metal magazine.
And when did you discover heavy metal?
I bought the first issue of Heavy Metal off the newsstand in 1977.
Was that when it first?
Yes.
That's when it. And you were on board right from the get.
Yeah, it was a very interesting time. I mean, I was sophomore going into junior year of high school, and comic books were getting to be very juvenile, because you discover girls and you don't want to be the dork, which I was, reading comic books.
Now's the time to own it.
Oh, big style. And they were, and actually the stories were getting kind of juvenile. It was like the same old thing, Spider-Man, blah.
Right, quippy.
Yeah, exactly. It's soap opera kind of goofy stuff. And then along comes heavy metal, and that's the first time I'd seen European style storytelling, but also to me it was fascinating, the big discovery that you could tell any kind of story you could ever imagine in comic book form. You could, science fiction and adventure. I mean, everything, just take it so far beyond a kid's medium. That was... Right.
So did you ever read manga, or did you get into that at all? You weren't Japanese, so, I mean, you weren't raised with it in 1977, So, I mean, I didn't either. I didn't even hear about it
on one of our family trips through Mongolia.
You said to yourself, yes, I would like to do is grow a mustache like Genghis Khan and read manga. Fair enough.
No, I was about 70 pounds heavier, about a foot shorter. I lived in this tiny little town called Groville, Maine. One of the most exciting tourist attractions in the town was a sand pit, which we used to ride our motorcycles in and then later drink in.
Okay. It had a lot of things going for it.
Downtown was a store that was also a gas station.
Was the sand pit everybody went to where no one was going to be killed? It was like, don't worry about it, we're just going to the sand pit. Oh, really? How many people have been killed? Just 6 in the last 20 years. Don't worry about it. It's like, that's the
freak thing, freak landslide.
Yeah, Wisconsin has a big field that they like to send people to. We're just going to the big field. Oh, are you? Okay. Well, nice knowing you.
It's so weird because it's a hangout place, and that's like, go to the pit tonight. Yeah, we're going to the pit.
The pit.
Everybody chips in and gets a 6-pack of Bud Pounders, and you go to the pit.
Good times.
drink a half a Bud 16-ouncer, and you're drunk.
Right, because you're,
puking
11.
After the whole thing.
Yeah. I do have a lot of heavy metal questions, weirdly enough. It's, see, I got a couple of, there we go. Are they putting together another heavy metal animated movie now that Black Sabbath's getting back together? Asked Bob Calhoun, friend of the show.
That's the only reason. Yes, that's exactly
because of Black Sabbath.
He had a restraining order against us, and now we can actually go back.
Fair enough. Maticus Rex. No, I don't believe you.
I'm lying.
You know what I like to do? Just fall for shit over and over again. Yeah. Just anybody can say whatever they want to Kashian. Doesn't matter. She doesn't.
We actually spent 4 of the last 5 years working with David Fincher to develop a new heavy metal animated movie that was going to be kind of like heavily influenced by the original Ivan Reitman heavy metal movie, which is about 7 or 8 sequences, all sort of loosely interconnected.
Oh, right.
But we're going to do it more of a heavy metal Fantasia style story, with sort of one story which would be drawn and animated in this particular style based on a heavy metal artist, and then that would sort of dissolve into the next story. It would keep rolling operatic like, and not one single person in Hollywood wanted to fund it or do it.
Not even Gallagher?
Not even Gallagher.
Did you hear about that?
He sold all of his stuff to help fund the movie, but it wasn't enough.
He's put all of his money in watermelon futures. Here's the thing. About 2 people emailed me and said, ask him what he thinks. Gallagher was on WTF, which is a podcast, the Mark Maron podcast, right?
Yep.
And claimed that he, on the WP, let's see.
It's true. I know.
Jamie Carrillo says on the WTF episode featuring Gallagher claimed he helped invent them. And
No,
David Boop says, is it true the comedian Gallagher funded the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie? Any of that true?
No, but see, what's interesting is one of the earliest proposals when the Turtles, as a self-published comic book, and we just started doing, the toys just came out, the animated series had just come on back in 1988, and we started getting lots of movie offers. And one of them was from Roger Corman's New World Pictures. Oh. And it came with a basic treatment, but part of the proposal was that Sam Kinison, Billy Crystal, Gallagher, and Bobcat Goldthwait were going to be the Ninja Turtles. Oh. And they were going to paint... They were going to wear the shells, and they'd have their faces painted green and this whole thing. And they were fighting. I still have I have the treatment somewhere. I have to find it.
Oh my God!
They were fighting these.
That's what I want for $600,000.
Semi-nude roller skating nuns, and it was fantastic.
Bobcat! I want Bobcat to be a turtle.
Can you? I would love to see that today. I really would.
Yeah, I'm willing to dig Kinison up. Let's do this.
Let's dig him up.
I will prop that man up, and he'll wear. It'll all work out. And he'd be ominous. Anyway, we'll put him in. We'll make him Casey. We'll put him in a hockey mask. It'll all work out. Nobody'll notice.
No. What we have to do it is like somebody sent me a trailer online of somebody did one of those mashups where they took the Reservoir Dogs trailer and cut it to a Turtles footage.
Awesome.
It's fantastic. Mr. Pink, Mr. Blue, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The way it was done, it was fantastic.
I'm going to email you for that link and put it in the notes.
You should.
Because that sounds sounds great. There's several pizza-related questions, as what sort of pizza that you enjoy. Joe Pierce would like to know. Do you have if you were ordering I like to ask this just in general, quite honestly. If you were ordering your own pizza, what would you have on it? I enjoy mushrooms, black olives, and onions. If it's just me eating it.
Ham and pineapple.
Ham and pineapple, a little Hawaiian moment.
We do actually with the kids. I have 2 kids, and we do Pizza Fridays every Friday. It's Papa John's Pizza Friday.
And do you get a ham and pineapple every time?
Yeah, me and my wife split it. Yeah, usually.
And what do they get?
They get cheese.
Oh, good. There we go. I was like, because children do not enjoy interest. They don't have any sort of depth.
But I actually loved it.
Your children do. I'm sorry.
Your
children are amazing. Jackass alert. Hi. Hey.
But no, I did. It's funny because back in the days when the early cartoon shows when the Turtles would put all kinds of crazy stuff, we'd get letters where people say they tried all kinds of really crazy pizza toppings, and it's like, just don't make yourself sick.
Right. Yeah.
The same kids would be going down in the sewers looking for the Turtles because they were sure that they lived down there.
Right. It's really a good thing that those manhole covers are as heavy as they are, because otherwise I would have been down there just going, I wonder. And I'm 23. Not good. Nope. A couple of people just wanted to say that you're awesome. Bailey DeRocher wanted to say that you made her an environmentalist, because the only one she read, she was 8, that it was about a man jungle cat that fought deforestation in the Amazon.
Yep. That sounds about right.
That's about it. She was 8.
That's cool.
And she's environmentally savvy now. And can you tell him thanks? Yes, Bailey, I just did. You were there for it. Excellent. And and do you, Michael Snow would like you to extrapolate what they're doing now that they're in their, 50s? No, like the Ninja Turtles are no longer teenagers. What would they be like as adults? Do you have any? Has that question been asked?
It's tough. It's a tough. I always remember that an artist named William Stout was hired by Disney to do this Disney at Mickey Mouse at 50.
Oh, okay.
And it was just the funniest thing. He made him, just really bitter and kind of fucked up, and his teeth were gone, and just would sit around and watch TV. He was really fat. I was like,
it might be like
doing
that.
something like that, but it'd be like more, I'm sure it'd be more positive.
Was it 3 Fingers? Is that what I'm thinking of? Is it called the Mickey Mouse?
Yeah.
3 Fingers. Have you read that one? The Mickey Mouse. It was about a Mickey Mouse character who, it's a graphic novel. Anyway.
People should read it. It's great.
People should read it. That's my husband, Andy, and he's my gateway drug into all comic books, by the way. So you can thank him for the fact that I know anything.
Well, there's a rule, like especially Disney characters, they can only have 4 fingers,
right?
3 regular fingers and a thumb, right? Is it part of that?
It's essentially that.
Think about that.
Yeah.
It's that there's a conspiracy going, and obviously, and then there's plastic surgery, and some of the animated characters are getting a finger removed, and it's very, very dark. It's enormously dark. So it's nice, and so we asked.
It actually would be it would be fun to do that. I think at some point, what the Turtles would be doing when they were like 60,
Yeah,
as a graphic novel.
Yeah, it's and what I liked about it's you guys are an inspiration to the indie comic book people, just because you just did the thing you wanted to do, which is what we're always told that we're supposed to do, and just keep doing it, and eventually someone will give a shit, or they won't, but in the end you will have done the thing that you wanted to do. So you have that triumph at the end of your
yes,
which I think is amazing. But what would you say about how that went forward? I mean,
well, when I look back, at the amount of, since I was really young, all I wanted to draw was comic books. Since I saw, one of my favorite comic books when I was growing up was a comic called Kamandi, and it was.
How do you spell that?
Kamandi.
Okay.
It's Kamandi, the Last Boy on Earth. It was written and drawn by Jack Kirby.
Oh, really?
When he went to DC, it was. Based on Planet of the Apes. It was basically, the Planet of the Apes story, he took it to where all animals took over Earth, and Kamandi was put down in this, like a protective underground laboratory, and he sort of came back out at a certain time and saw the world had completely changed, and he was literally the last boy on Earth. It was just fantastic Planet of the Apes kind of setting.
Yeah.
And that was sort of a big turning point for me. From him, to me, it was just so blown away that it was such an awesome and creative story that I said, I want to write and draw stories like this all day long. And my parents, were horrified to no end.
We were hoping you'd be a dentist. No?
Exactly. To the point, like, even when I was, I drew all the way through, grade school, when I should have been doing other stuff. I think I turned in 6th or 7th grade, I turned in a comic book as my final project.
Oh, really?
The teacher let me do it as I wrote and drew my own comic thing. Into high school, the same thing. And to the point where when I got out of high school and I wanted to go to art school, my dad said that he'd help pay for college if I went to any college but art school.
Oh, wow.
So I see that
nothing
as...
like a little blackmail. Well, how'd that work?
I figured that but he also took me to a life drawing class when I was still in high school, which was awesome. So I felt like he wanted to make sure, this is the way I look back at it now, is that he wanted to make sure I really, really wanted to be an artist. So if I wanted it, then I'd do it without his help.
Right.
So...
And that's...
I showed him, I retired him. No,
right.
But... I had a lot of drive and a lot of practice, and I worked really hard. But I feel like it was a lot of luck. There was a lot of luck, a lot of right place at the right time. And I really do like to. I always say that I stood on the shoulders of giants, and there were guys like Jack Kirby and people that inspired me. There were underground publishers before me, even guys like Dave Sim, who I think is a much better writer and an artist than I'll ever be, and Wendy and Richard Peeney, who also did. A book called The Elf Quest, and they were publishing around the same time as a black and white book.
Wendy was a friend of the show, Wendy Peeney.
She's awesome.
She was on the program. Go back in the archives. You can listen to that one, Elf Quest.
So we just, we sort of followed what they were doing. In fact, Dave Sim drawing this Cerebus, this little aardvark running around acting like Conan the Barbarian, drawing him like Barry Smith drew Conan.
Right.
I was like, oh, fuck, we can do that. It's like, we'll take... let me see, Frank Miller, who was a big fan, I would take Frank Miller's Ronin, what he had done, all these influences, the origin of Daredevil, popular themes from Chris Claremont, the New Mutants, and roll it up all into this one idea, and we'll sort of draw it like Frank Miller's. The first cover of the Turtles looks like Frank Miller's Ronin.
Okay.
We did it just to get attention, but we, put our heart and soul, and we wrote the kind of story that we wanted to read. We didn't think anybody was going to read it but us anyway.
Right. Well, that's the greatest thing about comics is because you're like, well,
we'll read it. It's ours.
No one's going to read it, and so I might as well do the thing I want.
Yep.
And then it genuinely.
It exploded.
Yeah, and one of the big questions a lot of people were asking was like, just where because the fascinating part of the toys and the cartoons and the turtles on ice, and let's put them out in space, and let's make Muppets out of them. Whatever, it's,
did it.
and you did it all, and it just enabled you. I mean, because kids loved it, and the original stuff was still for teenagers. It was still for teenagers and adults, and I think it's great.
Well, it's interesting that when we wrote we wrote and drew the first book, borrowed some money from an uncle to put it out. And we printed 3,000 copies.
And just self-published it. Just self-printed it.
And we did. We actually, when the copies of the book came home from the printer, we actually made furniture of them in our studio because we didn't think we'd ever sell them, a coffee table and a bookshelf and all this stuff. And they sold out.
Use coasters?
Yeah.
Okay.
Had we known. But we were so amazed that they sold in the first place. So we did another printing. The first 3,000 sold, then the next 6,000 sold.
And when you say the first 3,000 sold, did you take them to bookstores and go, would you guys carry this?
No, it was...
How'd you do it?
We had enough money. We put this business plan together for my uncle, and we had enough money for the local printer in Dover, New Hampshire to print 3,000 copies, and we had $145 budgeted for one ad in the Comics Buyer's Guide.
Okay.
In the comics, so as Comic Buyer's Guide went to comic collectors and comic stores and those kind of things. And from that one ad, we were going to sell them single copy through the mail for $1.50 plus 50 cents postage. We started getting a few orders, but we started getting calls from distributors who were getting calls from comic book stores. And the comic book stores were like, we like this comic. We're having customers come in and ask us to carry this comic. And so we'd like to buy some from you. And so they called up and said, we'd like to, this distributor called and said, we'd like to buy some copies of your book to distribute to comic stores. And we said, all right, we'll call you right back. So,
right.
What do we do?
What do we do now?
What do we do? So we called them back and we said, all right, we'll sell them to you at 10% off cover price. And when the guy got done laughing, he basically said, all right, this is how the direct market works.
Right.
And explained to us how the direct market works, how you solicit, how you collect orders, and then you print to suit those number of orders. So you kind of know what you're going to sell before you even spend the money on printing them.
Okay.
It's an awesome system. It's non-returnable as well. So, and so we did 3,000 of the first books, and then we did the second book. The pre-orders on the second book were 15,000. And that was awesome. And I remember when the orders rolled in, we told them up, and Peter and I were sitting in the studio, and we figured if we could do 6 of these a year, would make about $2,000 each per issue, and we could pay our rent, eat all the macaroni and cheese we want, so we could actually make a living drawing comic books.
12 grand. 12 sweet
Holy
grand.
Shit, in 1985, we were like. Another Ferrari in the driveway.
It was on blocks, but it was a Ferrari.
Very small. But to me, that's really when the dream came true, because I was able to, Peter as well, we were able to make a living drawing.
Were you guys, did you have day jobs at the time, or?
Yeah, I worked actually, my job was a night job. I worked in a hotel because I did the third shift so I could draw at night. There's not that many people, from like 12:30 to about 1:30, you get a bunch of drunk people coming in looking for hotel rooms, and then after that it was pretty quiet. So I'd stay up all night drawing.
So you didn't work at like a no-tell motel where they work it by the hour?
No.
That's the ideal. That's great, because then you never get any downtime. It's every hour and a half.
True.
You're like,
clean the sheets again.
You're back.
But what's
well done, sir.
It's interesting is out of that whole, once the licensing took off when we were doing cartoons and toys and all those things, it never affected the sales of the black and white comics. The fans that we had that read the original comics.
Right.
When we were selling, 800,000 copies, say, of an Archie Turtle, we were still selling like 60,000 copies of the original black and white. We had those fans, and those stayed our fans, and all the new fans, all the kids, because most of the original fans didn't felt that we sold out.
Right, right. And you were like, yes, I did. And I don't have a problem with that. I would like to support all selling out, by the way. Do you know why? Because it enables you to continue to do the thing you want, right?
Well, you know what the cool thing is what I said is that, keep going back to this, we stood on the shoulders of giants in the sense that, guys like Jack Kirby and people like that didn't have the opportunity to sell out if they chose to sell out. But that's the most important thing that when I remember and allowed us to benefit from the success is our choice to accept or try to make them into toys or allow that to happen to the characters that we created was our decision.
I think Jack Kirby was sold piecemeal. I mean, he was sold by DC and made no money,
Right.
And I think Jack, let's extrapolate without knowing who the hell I'm talking about, but I think he would have sold out given the chance to be handed a bag of money to make a Superman character or whatever, and not that I don't know. Hi.
Well, no, you're not that far. I mean, basically, he was in the job of his job in the system that existed at the time was work for hire, and that's you worked for a company and you worked to work for hire. So all your creativity, the things you created, the things you drew were for that company, but your job was to come up with cool and interesting characters that sold. So, the idea is to sell more comics, and you get to keep your job.
So it was sort of like the invention of the Legs egg. I have a friend of mine whose mom invented the Legs egg, but she didn't get any of the patent money from it because she worked for a company that said, "Thank you very much. This is what we're going to sell, the Legs egg." And so, but it was, they're like at 3M, I think that they also have that sort of thing, right?
Like the Post-its guy.
Yeah, the Post-it guy, I don't think made a great deal of money because he made Post-its. He just got a bonus that year and then continued to make whatever he makes a year, right?
Yep.
Was it like that?
Yeah, it was like that. So it's like, so you'd have, a lot of these characters that went on to make, many millions for a big corporation, and he would, still be making, $10 a page or $20 a page or $100 a page. And that was it. And no royalties, no shared revenues, or anything.
Right, no back end at all. Which that's the great thing. I read a lot of comic books now, and some of them are indie or more indie, like Image and stuff like that. And I just like the fact that, I like Teen Titans and I like Superboy and I like superhero stuff, but I also like the weird stuff about nothing, about just some, have you read Chew? And yeah, it's just the chicken people. Let's go there with the avian flu for 1,000 episodes that don't necessarily end. And you're like, where's it going? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because it's more about chicken, and it makes me laugh.
You're right. What I love about it is exactly that. What's interesting too is that in my lifetime, I've seen, in my history in comics, I've seen it completely change to where, it's very, very common. When I started, it was still pretty rare that you would create, self-publish, and own your own characters. To see, that's guys like Frank Miller and Todd McFarlane and all these guys that came after. All the guys, those are all house artists for Marvel and DC. They were all drawing. I want to draw Spider-Man, I want to draw Hulk, and other stuff. And now they fulfilled that childhood fantasy, but then they got to go beyond that and create characters that they own and build, but look what McFarlane did. Look what Frank Miller did with Sin City and things like that.
And create their own. Now, when because you tried to help. According to Wikipedia, hello, you created a publishing house and wanted to help other artists write and create their own stuff. And it was harder than it looked, essentially, according to the quotes that I've read, what you've said in the past.
Yeah, well, it's like I have, I've been very lucky and very blessed, and I follow my dreams. And even, just putting on this gallery show, I had this idea that I'm going to do a show with the Turtles, and then, I'll do heavy metal, and I'm going to add everything I've ever created ever in my whole fucking life in this one show and put it together in 4 weeks.
Right.
I have these, I don't want the idea to be stifled by reality. Which can be a problem sometimes. Like, when you look at your checkbook and it's completely empty.
Aim for the stars, man, because then you'll hit the moon or some crap. Anyway, sorry.
No, exactly.
But you know what I'm saying?
It's like the friend I was telling you about that. How do you get off a desert island? Well, you just build a space shuttle. We'll fly that fucker off here.
You have a coconut. You have one,
like the Gilligan's Island technology of getting off so back in the early days when Peter and I were going around the country promoting the Turtles, doing signings at Comic Cons, and the first year I went to San Diego Comic Con was in 1985, and they were hoping for, I think, 10,000 attendees. Right. It was still in the Civic Center. The convention hotel was the Hotel San Diego, where the roaches would carry up your luggage. It was.
Wow.
You could still find strip clubs and tattoo parlors and stuff in downtown San Diego.
Downtown San Diego.
So we'd go and I get to know guys like Steve Bissette and Frank Miller and Mike Mignolia's and guys. Mike, when I first met Mike Mignolia, he was drawing Rocket Raccoon for Marvel.
Right.
So all these guys, they'd sit around and they'd go, man, if I didn't have to draw, if I wasn't working for the man,
right,
I'd do this, and I'd do this. And so the more successful the Turtles got, I felt that, if I could give them the opportunity to have the same experience of creating a character that they would own, as well as receive the lion's share of the royalties from its success. But I would create a base amount that the company would keep so I could keep doing new stuff. It was basically the Apple Records model, but I swore it was not going to end like Apple Records, what the Beatles did, which it ended exactly like the Apple Records. I ran out of money.
Right, eventually.
Nothing sold.
It's, but it was, but I love the idea of it, because if you don't think that way, if you don't think, well, let me try and give back, let me try and figure out how to make other people get to do this this amazing thing.
Well, what it was, I mean,
You're a
stuff
jackass.
was coming to, I published From Hell. I was the first guy to publish From Hell. I published The Crow. I published Madman. I published, there's all these things that came. I just loved the projects that came to me as publishing opportunities. I published them because it was stuff that I would read or I'd want to read,
And were those the years that you did Tundra really affect the fact that, I mean, it had to be kind of a dream come true to buy heavy metal and to
oh my
be.
God, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you ever have? I mean, I'm sure since then you've read the French versions or looked at a lot of the French. But had you seen the French versions prior? Or it's because it used to be called howling metal or something. It was called, but in French.
Yeah, it was like Metal Hurlant is the French title, and it's a literal translation is screaming metal. And when the folks from National Lampoon, who originally brought it here in 1977, changed it, they simplified it to just heavy metal,
right?
With the slanted trademark, and that became the moniker that became the brand. And in fact, the French company went out of business, I think, 2 or 3 years later. So by the time heavy metal was just starting to really take off here, and Ivan Reitman was working on the new heavy metal movie, the French magazine folded. It was like 1979, 1980.
And heavy metal is adult content. It is. It's science fiction. It's fantasy. It's also some nonfiction, is it not? Or
the earliest, it used to be monthly when it first started in 1977, and it was this really interesting hybrid of there'd be short stories from Harlan Ellison and other sci-fi science fiction writers in prose,
right.
lightly illustrated. Howard Chaykin did a lot of stuff, adapted some things.
Wow.
They would buy some of the best French material, like Mobius's Airtight Garage or the Better Tomorrow or Iki Belial's stuff, some other stuff. But they would also mix it with Richard Corbin's Den. So they were picking some of these underground artists that were coming up, like Von Bodie's Sun Pot was, I think, in the first couple issues of heavy metal. Richard Corbin's Den was in the early issues of heavy metal. So there's kind of a hybrid of everything adult.
But all, I mean, we look around because people should know, if you are in Los Angeles, when does the show go till?
This show, when I set up the show, it started November 30th and it's going to January 4th.
January 4th, okay.
And the idea was that it was 35 days of Kevin Eastman, 35 days of heavy metal for the 35th anniversary of heavy metal, which is in 2012. And so we wanted to start with, the Turtles, new IDW comic that I've been working on, to a number of other, each Wednesday, each new comic day, I'd expand a section of the gallery with a new section of original art, of original content, concepts and drawings and things that I've done. So
what's the title of the IDW comic?
It's Ninja Turtles.
It's the new Ninja Turtle run.
Yeah, it's a new Ninja. So it's funny. It's like full circle. I mean, I sold my interest in the Turtles to Pete many years ago. Pete sold to Viacom about 3 years ago, and now all those companies have come back to me to ask me to work
do
on
it again.
Turtles, which is awesome. It was pretty.
It's super fun.
It was. It actually has been fun. I hadn't tried the last when Ted, a friend of mine. I've known Ted Adams, who owns IDW. He's one of the main owners of IDW. He approached me to come back and work on the Turtles. I had not drawn a turtle comic in sequential form since 1996.
Wow!
Simon Bisley and I did a turtle comic called Body Count, which was inspired by John Woo movies. We did the longest. It's a great story. I mean, Simon, if you guys know Simon Bisley, he's fantastic. He's legendary, world-renowned. Draws these big, massive Judge
He'll
Dredd,
be in the notes.
Lobo. Mm-hmm. Yep. Lobo is one of his most popular characters.
Oh, okay. All right. I've seen those.
Which looks and acts a lot like Simon does.
Well, cheerful.
So Simon.
What is happening? I'll give you a couple more questions if you like. Crowbama, Darren Staley would like to know, why are the turtles all Italian? And he'd like to say that in a really angry voice. No, I have no idea. What did you? What you went with the with the great painters of the Renaissance? Yeah,
it was basically when you are working within the framework of something as absurd as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, this is Peter and I sitting in in this tiny little room in Dover, New Hampshire, and we're like, well, what should the names be? Well, traditional Oriental or Asian names doesn't seem funny enough, or Bob, Doug, Steve doesn't seem quite funny enough.
Right.
And I was always a big art history fan. I said, well, what if we did something completely crazy and go like Italian Renaissance artists like Michelangelo, Leonardo.
Yes.
And we both were like, that's it. In fact, Donatello was the last one to be added because I wanted to name the last turtle Bernini. I liked him better as
You just liked his work a little bit better?
I did. I liked him better as a sculptor. And Pete's like, no, we should have something with an O. We should end with an O. So we went with Donatello. And not that Donatello was a slouch, but,
Right, a bit of a slacker, that Donatello. It's Teresa Devaney wants to know, what is the correlation between individual Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the individual personas of the members of KISS? Does that have anything to do with reality? No, we're good. All right, good work, Teresa. Anyway,
we should come up with maybe there's a crossover there.
It's an awesome crossover. Please do a KISS Teenage Mutant Ninja crossover. Vilmos asked about the names, which you just answered, and then. Marmel would like to know, Steve Marmel, creator of The Fairly Odd Parents, a stand-up comic I started working with for some reason.
Awesome. My kids love that show.
We get a question from Steve Marmel, and it is, Herman Cain went from a pizza chain to running for president. What does Kevin want to do next? Right. You got anything there? You got a Herman Cain joke?
Man, a lot of them.
That guy's a dick. I like to take a stand.
How does somebody get that far?
Right.
Man, it's like it's actually incredibly disturbing that that this guy would have a surge in the polls. Who's surging these polls to make this guy fucking popular? You know what I mean?
Right.
That freaks me out and scares me.
He was the weirdest dude in the world.
He is a guy like that at FedEx. I go to this FedEx place and he always, fucks. You know what I mean? It's sort of one of those things like,
yeah.
It could snap at any minute.
Yes.
Herman Cain, FedEx guy.
You know what? Herman Cain always reminded me of one of those guys that would meet women and then be the elbow squeezer, where he's just like, oh, it's so nice to meet you. When he shakes your hand and grabs your elbow and squeezes it. It is one of there was a guy, a booker in northern Minnesota. A guy booked some classy gigs at some Indian casinos. I'll do them again, Chuck. But you can't shake my hand. You can't shake my hand because you creep me out. And I will tell him that. I told him he had to stop kissing my hand. Because who's a grown up? I'm wearing a sweatshirt. There's no hand kissing. If I were wearing a ball gown, possibly there'd be some hand kissing. If I had the glass slipper on. I've digressed completely.
No. It's fact, because we were talking about this a little bit earlier, and there's sort of like it makes you sort of question your sense of reality when stuff like that happens, because it's like you first look around and go like, am I being punked, or is there something weird going on, or is this person just really this messed up, or it's like, or is it me? Is it really me? Is just the way they normally do things, and they're just finding this out now that I have to wear a sweatshirt and I get my hand kissed all the time.
Exactly.
That's how it's supposed to be.
Right. Is this the sexism they've told me about? It's see, the only sexism that's ever really bothered me is the one where I get paid less. That's the one that always bothers me, and I'm like, why am I getting paid less? And then they either pay me more or they have a reason. And then I go, oh, it isn't sexism. But it might be. Who knows? I can't. My thing is I can never tell. Here we go. Noah would like to know. Now, Noah Cutler, friend of the show, would like to know about heavy metal. Do you see the iPad Kindle for cost-efficient distribution of the 20-plus year back catalog of heavy metal? Do you see that being something?
Well, I would, but it's funny because we've been talking about different digital applications to heavy metal out there in the world, but people have already done it, which is funny. It's like, because, it's like piracy.
Oh, right. They've already
some guy somewhere has, and I found out like I don't know, 6 or 7 months ago, somebody sent me a link to this guy was offering for free. Look for it. You can buy every single issue of heavy metal online, scanned better than I've actually printed it, like 300 DPI with those page turning thing, and ads, everything. It's the whole thing. The entire library right up to the issue I just published. It had just been released. It was like the July 2010.
And he's charging for it?
No, it's free.
Oh, no, it's free.
It's free.
Oh, that's nice. Oh, you might want to pull a Louis C.K. and ask for $5 an issue and just see if you get millions of dollars. It's, that is, and then, nope. Yeah, I'm going to edit out this silence. It's going to be awesome. It's just me trying to... Because the thing is Noah has questions, but I'm just like, I can't really see... And he's more telling me, and I don't know anything, so I'm kind of sucked in. And
I like that. That's like people that give you information.
Oh, yeah.
He's really closely.
What find is he proudest of to come out of that? And you mentioned a couple of them that you were psyched about. Yep. It's... Mad Men. We did Michael Allred's Mad Men. We published Mr. Monster. The Crow was with my friend James O'Barr. We published The Crow. It was fantastic. From Hell was a really interesting discovery because
Steve Bissett started publishing in Taboo, and that title was failing, so we sort of took him under the Thunder banner and published it, and I started reading, get exposed to From Hell and Eddie Campbell's art, which I'd never seen before.
Right.
God, Dave McKean did a series for us called Cages, which was awesome. Baron Story did one. He did this, probably the most fucked up one I did, which I love, and it's just there's this guy his name is Baron Story, and he's one of these artists that's a legend. He used to draw for like Newsweek and Motorcycle Week, and guys like George Pratt and John Muth and Jeff Jones, and all looked up to Baron Story.
Right.
And he showed me this project where he was adapting the Marat Sade in this little digest size, this diary that he would keep. It was a cross between him talking to himself, him venting about Marat Sade and telling the story of the Marat Sade, and the same thing in this mind-blowing bipolar clusterfuck of I don't know what.
Right.
But I published it and I love it.
Yeah.
You can't get, 3 pages in without going, what is
but it's
awesome. It's beautifully illustrated. I think I lost a fortune, but it's one of those, the first year I think Thunder was in business, I think we got like 16 or 17 award nominations and lost $2 million, and then
Right.
it went downhill from there. I was like,
But it was the effort. It was like the museum that you started, that I also read about. You were like, it's a comic.
That place, yes.
Because you've essentially answered many of Todd Mason's questions about artists that you love, and before you talk about the French artists that had an impact and that you enjoyed. Do you think that we've yet achieved the kind of popular understanding and critical appreciation for comics and graphic storytelling in this country that such work has enjoyed in Europe and elsewhere?
No.
Okay. So still no with the you're not going to do a new museum?
Oh,
you're just going to have people come over to your house still and go, I'm sorry, this is it. You have to actually know me. Fair enough.
I'm going to get an RV and I'm going to travel the country with my...
bookmobile.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. That'd be kind of neat.
What's interesting is just the difference between American comics and French comics or European comics in general is that what had changed, it's just two different kinds of storytelling, and although I think a lot of them have intertwined now, where, the world is shrunk between, manga being easily accessible here and all kinds of European material being easily accessible here through heavy metal and many other venues. It's like, when McCarthyism started here and they did the Comics Code Authority and they stifled the growth of comics, the Europeans never had that, so they kept evolving their style of storytelling. So it was, the audiences that grew up with it could grow up with much older content, so they stayed with it longer. To the point when I first went to Europe after I bought heavy metal in 1990, is I went into this comic store in Paris, and this thing was massive. It was like a Barnes and Noble. It was like Borders, and it was like there was business guys in business suits in there buying comics.
Wow.
And there was women in there buying comics. To me,
right.
It was mind-blowing. It wasn't like, the comic store I used to go to was this really obese guy had a store called My Mother Threw Mine Away, and his place was you'd go through kicking trash out of the way looking for this week's releases. So the appreciation was a bit different. And plus, even the French government supports it with a national school. They support it with a national museum. It's a respected art form. French comic book artists are chased down the street like the Beatles, literally. I've seen it.
For real?
In Angoulême, yes. Mobbed, like French artists mobbed. I'm like, I'm moving here.
Right.
But,
yeah. Jerry Lewis too, though. But no, and the French. The thing about the French, and I love the French, but the French
so true.
need to create jobs that they will create jobs out of anything. They're just like, no, it's art. We're going to have curators and we're going to have people stacking things. No, but I love that it encourages. It's not that it isn't. It's obviously
it's so true,
I'm on board, people. Yeah. I've sort of embraced it a little too much, where. It's gotten a little absurd. Anyway, so, Eric Bigglestone, who you may know Branwen Bigglestone from Image. Do you know her? No? Nothing? Okay.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Oh, that's fine.
Do I owe
really,
them money?
I didn't give you any time to answer that. That was fine. But this is a good question, because with heavy metal, how much separation is there between the editor and publisher positions? Do you see them as individual jobs, or is it all of one piece?
It's just me.
It's just you.
I love these. It's like I get these letters. When I bought heavy metal, there was 5 people in the entire company counting me. Now there's 4 people in the entire company counting me.
Wow.
So
right. So it is just
me. It's like sort of like I pick out pretty much every single thing that goes in the magazine. It's sent to me.
That's awesome.
The covers, the short stories, the long stories, everything. It's so I get this massive amount of material that I go through and get to pick out.
That's
for each
a full-time
issue.
job, I bet.
It is.
Yeah.
But I love it. I mean, it's sort of like the one thing about heavy metal. It's kind of the last of the kind of these little tiny little holdout independent companies. I mean, I own most of it. I have one partner that owns the rest of it. Howard, that's been there for 35 years.
Oh, right. So he's in.
Yeah.
And
yes.
So I was just wondering if so do you think it lends more towards fantasy or more towards science fiction?
What constantly amazes me is that the kinds of material I can pick and choose for the magazine, because it's sort of the neighborhood's larger than you'd think, meaning that I've done, spaghetti westerns, I've done film noir pieces, I've done spaghetti film noir period pieces,
Right.
I've done, historical pieces,
you
Lord of the
can.
Rings.
Yeah.
And it's gotten to be where the audience sort of looks forward to the next issue because it's not a continuing story. They don't know what they're going to get in the next issue. And for example, like if we have an ongoing series, one of them is a series called Requiem. It's this vampire on acid story that's just fantastic. Pat Mills wrote it. I've published 9 installments, 48-page feature story installments, one a year for 9 years. And so fans will wait an entire year. Every March I put out the new installment of Requiem. So they've waited an entire year for the next installment because they know March they're going to get the next installment of Requiem, but then the May issue is going to have a completely different adventure, and it's usually a featured story surrounded by a couple galleries and short stories. So it's kind of the self-contained. So if you missed the March issue and you bought the May issue,
Right.
it's standalone, so you don't really need
Okay.
before or after, and it's kind of its own little...
But for 9 years,
9
a
years.
chapter of this Requiem, I had a hard enough time waiting for the last Harry Potter movie. It's that is awesome. I think that's Pat Mills. I will look for that. Is it? Now, do you do collections?
Yes. Yep.
Afterwards? I mean, sort of like comic books, where you can just box them up and call it a graphic novel.
We can, but it's funny that, heavy metal's audience, we're still a very small company in that, a small readership. We have 15,000 subscribers. We sell maybe another 25,000 copies off the newsstand. But the last time I did like a survey of heavy metal readers, about 50% or better have been reading it since issue 1. So they're older readers, you know what I mean? So they don't mind. They're not in it for collecting it. They're not in it, so they've already got it in its single issue form, so they're not necessarily interested in buying it as a collection.
Right.
So
I suspect they might also have all of the TV guides from the 80s.
they do.
Much like my grandmother. Wow, a little snark going on. Okay, I don't know why, because I think I collect so much stuff now that I don't have a leg to stand on with the collecting, because we have thousands and thousands of comic books, and I'm like, well, this looks interesting. We could collect 19 of these, and then find a way to bag them and find them in a new home instead of this coffee table. Let's just start stocking long boxes and make like we're in college, and we could. I could build
furniture.
I could build a throne.
You look like Thor, the one from the new Thor movie of comic boxes.
I want to know.
I bet that's probably been done.
I bet you that's been done. It's a throne of skulls somewhere in San Francisco. Someone's sitting on it right now. Wow, I don't know why I made it in San Francisco, but what I do want to know, what kind of stuff. So do you still read a lot? I mean, because your work is so much reading of other people's stuff, do you do much recreational reading?
Not as much as it's a lot of recreational looking, because I do. I literally, between scripts and different stuff, it's like I've got so many hours in a day, and I've got 2 kids, 12 Dutch hounds.
What?
I do,
12 dogs.
I have 12 wiener dogs. Yeah.
Wiener dogs.
It's fantastic.
Excellent.
Best
That's
dogs
amazing.
in the world. Anything I do around the house, it's like walking through a koi pond. It feels like, whatever you're doing, there's 12 little wiener dogs around you.
I would like you to harness those 12 dogs and then put a tiny sleigh behind them. Yes. Yes, that's exactly.
Fantastic. Actually, I have one that's, his name is Peanut, and he looks like Chewbacca. He's got this wire hair thing, but you say Peanut, and he smiles at you. You go, Peanut, and he's like, There's a
he is adorable.
It's the creepiest thing. It's cool. No, it's like.
Are they all red? What colors are wiener dogs?
All over the spectrum.
Okay. Are they? They aren't boutique dogs, are they? They haven't been crossbreeded with a Labradoodle or something, are they? Or?
No, and more than half are rescued. And it's like it's getting to the point where every time my wife would leave the house, there'd be some tragic story about a dog that should rescue this dog.
Weirdly enough, it's another Dachshund. You're like, is she? What is she doing? Is she stalking other wiener dogs?
I know. It's almost like people are stalking her. I heard there she is. There's the Dachshund lady.
There's the lady. There's the lady who'll take this dog because we can't take it, and maybe we can steal it back when we get back from Christmas. And instead of boarding or whatever,
she'll fatten it up, and then we can.
Are you guys vegetarians? Just out of curiosity.
Now we are.
Now, right? Do you ever eat hot dogs?
But it's funny that 'cause I still I come to the comic store just about every week with my kids and because I'm doing so much reading of work that I have to do. By the time I buy my comics that I'm going to read, and the stack gets bigger and bigger. And so finally, it's to be about 1.5 feet, 2 feet tall. Right. And I move it to another location so I can continue the stack. And I look through them all. I'm like, man, I can't wait to read this. I'm just going to wait till the 4th issue comes out. Then I'm going to sit down and I'm going to read them.
And do all the back issues. And wow, you will never be bedridden enough. It'll never happen. There's just not going to.
I'm hoping for a good illness so I can just
right. Can I just get a good flu, but where I'm not tired? Where I want to read for 12 hours a day and just catch up on what is happening with X Factor. Because X Factor is really good. You might enjoy Peter David X Factor. But
I had a bad
weed off into another.
I had a bad experience with him and a case of ho-hos. It was really creepy.
Peter David and a case of ho-hos?
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it will be drawn, and oddly enough,
Scarred
in that story, there will be a woman with giant breasts and just nipple covers, and it will be illustrated in heavy metal.
Yes.
I would like the story of Peter David, some ho-hos, Kevin Eastman, and a giant-breasted lady. Because there's noodliness going on in the heavy metal. There's a lot of nudes. There's some scantily cladness happening.
There are, but what's interesting is that for a while there, and I've made some adjustments because it was starting to bother me. Is that the ads were actually racier than the actual content, so there would be the point where people would pick it up and it's like they'd feel like they were reading an issue of Hustler because the ads are like all anime, hentai porn, or this kind of stuff. And it was. But how
about just an Altoids ad? It'll be fine.
It'll be fine.
Everything doesn't have to be a vibrator moment.
Tampax, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Anything.
Alcohol. No, but it was for a while there was because I used to have this message board on the heavy metal website, and there were these I have like 60,000 readers, but I have these same fucking 9 guys that would go up there and like, dude, more Corbin, more Belial, more of this, and I would go up and I'd say, dude, they're not doing comics anymore, but if they do, we'll do it. And he said, you suck, more Corbin, more.
Wow.
But I had this thing, but they had this rating system where if I put too much nudity, too much sexual situations, they'd say, oh, heavy metal's going all porn. It's all porn now. They're trying to sell more copies of porn. But if I put too little,
right.
Oh no, they're censoring. They're no good. They're no good. Don't buy any more heavy metals. So I figured that there's a perfect set of exposed boob count per issue. It's about 17 pairs of boobs per issue, and it's kind of a safety zone. If you go to 20 pairs of exposed boobs, I'm porn. If I go to 10, I'm censoring.
We're talking 32 nipples. 32 nipples, and that's it. It's
32 nipples, and I'm in.
I've told Rangers of the Dork Forest before, but my first animated crush had to be the adolescent Bam Bam. Actually, no, it would have been Racer X. And then, but the first one that didn't have a shirt on would have been Mulan's boyfriend in Mulan. Hi, I was 18. So, I mean, but I think, because I do think that because I know that there is comic book porn, and I know that gentlemen's will read it and then touch their bits and then switch a page and then go with it, right? So, I mean, it's not that these ladies are not attractive. That lizard not much
There's a reason we print on glossy paper.
Right, you can just wipe that down. Keep going. Why I had to explain that joke, I have no idea. I'm so sorry.
That's awesome.
It's too ridiculous. So are you watching? There has to be like an hour and a half of your day where you're just like, no, I just want to stare deeply into your eyes to your loved ones, right? I mean, because there's not a lot of extra reading you can do or TV watching or what do you do Like, is there downtime fun? Is there stuff like, what do you dork out about that isn't this? Or is it all this?
Well, dorking, I mean, it's like, I have my,
because it's minute 50 and you should come up with like, I have a Japanese sneaker collection that I have and I'm really into, I don't know, wolves.
Toenail collection or something.
You know what? Wiener dogs. We could talk about wiener dogs.
No, it's funny. It's almost boring. It's like I like to write. I like to draw. That's sort of any time I can steal away. It's like I pull out my sketchbook and I have stuff. I still have drawings I did like in sixth grade that I'm gonna get back and I'm gonna fix that. I'm gonna get that one finished.
Right. Oh, that's awesome.
So I'm messing around with that kind of stuff, and I'm one of these guys that actually I noticed my youngest son does the same thing. I'm great at lining stuff up. I do like all my piles in my studio are very neat and linear. It's like have you been in the studio here at Meltdown?
Yeah.
That is physically exactly. I mean, all that stuff came out of my studio. I moved it here and repinned it up. Almost in the same.
It's like
spot it came out of my house. It's
in the gallery. It's part of the exhibit. And
part of the exhibit,
it looks like essentially a giant, like it's a beanbag chair of stuff that you're like, I'm going to cuddle up with all of my items and draw in the middle of it. Yes. It sounds very comforting, quite honestly.
And that's exactly what it is. It's sort of like like Usual Suspects. That's my Kaiser Soze wall. I can create stories out of all the stuff, or all these little mojos and weird things that I've collected and stuff to give me power, I guess, or comfort, because the kind of work that I do, it's a very solitary gig. It's it's like at the end of the day, it's from 8 o'clock at night to 2 in the morning is me in this room by myself watching something on TV usually, right, or the radio going, and I'm drawing and doing stuff in the space. So the space becomes my whole world, my whole planet. So is it just background TV essentially, or background music, and you're drawing around it, or are you paying attention to Burn Notice? What's happening? I love Burn Notice. That's awesome. Who doesn't? I know. What's not to love? I hope that doesn't get canceled. My favorite time I ever watched Burn Notice, I was in a hotel room and there was a 62-inch television a foot from the bed. Wow. And so I felt like I was in Florida in Burn Notice. I was like, when does somebody hand me a gun? I know, but you see how much weight Bruce Campbell's actually put on that big screen. Lay off the donuts. Lay off the craft service. Yeah. No, but it's funny because it was when I'm writing and stuff, I can't have. It's got to be completely quiet. But then there's the drawing is it's you can do lots of other things. You can multitask, and so a lot of times, depending on I used to have this rating system actually where. Go to the Virgin Megastore or the Tower Records when I was here, and I'd buy 4 or 5 different DVDs. And I'd watch them, and the rating was like, if I got a lot of work done, the movie sucked. If I didn't get that much work done, the movie was pretty good. Right. But sometimes I'd have to watch a movie 2 or 3 times in a row to actually see the whole thing. Right. But then I have these movies when I know I have to focus. I'll put in movies that I'm very familiar with, like old friend, like Aliens or Big Trouble in Little China or Blade Runner, stuff like that. I've seen a million times, and I can have playing in the background and just enjoy it and keep me company while I'm working. You don't even have to see it. You know exactly where the movie's at. Yeah. Look up at the good parts. Oh yeah, I love that. Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to keep drawing. And that's so great. So what would you recommend? I mean, you would recommend that people check out Heavy Metal, right? And yes. and each issue is mostly just one-offs, right? Like mostly it's one story, complete story right there, and it's only a couple of different things, or just that one thing that's been going for 9 years. What it is? It's the format. When I first started reading Heavy Metal, and actually I was one of those people that got frustrated. They used to run all these great stories, but like 6 pages at a time. So it would take you like 32 years. It's like, it's like one of those credit card statements you get now. It says, if you pay minimum balance, it's going to take you 32 years to pay this off. Right. It's like, to finish this Mobius story, you're going to have to read Heavy Metal for 22 years. They changed the format in like the early 80s where they started doing, self-contained issues. So they'd take like one large feature story, like a typical French graphic novel is 48 pages. So that'd be the featured story. Right. They'd run it in 2 parts, one in the front, one in the back. Then they'd run an artist gallery featuring some up-and-coming artists or existing artists. And then they'd surround all that with, like a 4-page story, self-contained, 6-page story, 8-page story, 12-page story. So you get to see, so you can go through, you can take it to the bathroom with you, read 2 short stories, or you can take it to the bed with you and read the longest.
Wait, but they break it up into 2. They're just like, you're going to want to take a break right around here. It's page 12.
Exactly.
Let's give you a nice picture and another thing and something else.
Yep.
Oh, interesting. The French are bossy. That's what we learned. I like them. They're doing good work with butter. So, Kevin Eastman, you are a delight, quite honestly. I thank you so much for coming on the show. And
it's been a blast. Thank you.
The Dork Forest you're a dork luminary. That's what you are. You're one of the dork luminaries out there.
And very proud to be so. I love it.
Own it.
Gaston said maybe January 5th we're going to make a big announcement. We're going to continue the show for another month back by popular demand.
Yes,
so
extended.
He hasn't guaranteed it yet, but I hope he does.
If you were in Los Angeles, ladies and gentlemen, you should always come to Meltdown Comics
yes.
because it's great. But if you're super lucky, the Kevin Eastman art exhibit will be continuing. And right now, what we're going to do is we're going to say thank you so much for dorking out, but we're going to have a little stand-up comedy. What do you think? Can you bring the dorky stand-up comedy, Baron Vaughn? You can do it, my friend. Yeah, let's move this table. Do you want to just sit across from me and run your bits like panel?
Yes.
Oh Christ!
I want
you want to interview you about what your set list is like? Oh, now that he's on USA. Are you hoping to do some animated?
It's just, it was such a relaxed conversation.
It is a relaxed conversation.
And he's an interesting person.
Right.
With a lot of interesting things to say.
That's why there was a lot of silence where there wasn't a great deal, because I was just like, tell another story. That's fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, I would rather I'd rather do a lecture where comedy is incidental.
Okay.
Because it's like he had interesting things to say. I'm going to be like, how about dicks? They exist. It just seems like
What's your Ninja Turtle cred? What do you got?
Me?
Yeah.
I can do those sound effects. I was just saying earlier, I used to draw the turtles. I drew when I was younger, I drew the Turtles, Garfield, and Simpsons-like people. That was it.
All right.
Just people that looked like the Simpsons.
I can draw Snoopy and the bird. It has a name. Woodstock. There we go.
Woodstock, yes.
Thanks for playing. Okay. Yeah, but
it's just meant like a middle finger. Snoopy wearing a T-shirt with a middle finger in it. I'm a red Baron. Fuck you.
Baron Vaughn's first bit was about flipping off the bird. Thank you very much. And your next bit.
What a downgrade.
It's
Go ahead, what?
Yeah, no, it was in 8th grade. That's all I drew was instead of learning science. By the end of it, I had perfected Snoopy. I could do it. I could make his ears into a helicopter.
What
Good times.
kind of science?
It was earth science, no doubt, because it was 8th grade, 13.
Yeah.
What else is? I mean, it's not going to be fission, right? I mean, it's not going to be.
You mean physics?
No, I meant fission.
I like that you said fission. And you're like, I don't know,
some sort of.
Okay, well, how about this? This is great because you guys watch talk shows, late night talk shows, and stuff like that. So sometimes they'll have a comic on that does the panel, and they just do their act.
Right.
But the host sets them up for it.
Yeah.
And the most awkward example is a show called Comics Unleashed. Did you ever do Comics Unleashed, Jackie?
No, I was far too leashed.
Well, I was on it. I was on Comics Unleashed in a season that they called Chocolate Sauce.
Baron Vaughn is an African American gentleman.
If you couldn't tell by the way I just said, then you need to get new ears.
Wow, that is the worst black accent ever. I don't know your credibility.
You need to get new ears. It's a fantastic black scent.
Black scent.
Black scent. That's new to all of you. I'm gonna kill it.
I'm here to help.
So these comics will sit there and they'll do their act and the
Byron Allen.
Yes, Byron Allen, man. And I was on it and it's 4 comedians and he sits kind of at the head of the non-table and there's no pretense of it's a conversation. He just asks you one question. He'll be like, so Baron, you live in Las Vegas. The end. And this is right after a different comedian has done a bit. So then he'll just go like, So, just like no transition, no segue.
Lisa Alvarado told me that she had been the setups were written by his assistant, I guess, and he actually turned to her and said, "I can't believe I'm about to say this. So you're a Mexican mother."
You mean Byron Allen would be like him?
Byron Allen actually said, "I can't believe I'm about to say this." It's like, so you were a Mexican mother. It was like something.
Wow.
And that led into her being a Mexican mother.
Yeah, a bit about being a Mexican mother.
Yeah.
I just feel like the Byron Allen I met believed everything that he said.
Right.
There was nothing he could not believe.
Right. Because he was making a scale plus 10%.
Yes.
And there was nothing to be, no reason not to be.
Well, okay, so a comedian will go on a show, and then they'll do the panel, and the host sets them up for their bits. But I wanted to see if we could do that.
Write a set list.
But you not knowing what the hell I'm going to say.
Oh, right. But didn't you tell me you got abducted by pirates? Boom, go. How about I write your set list and you come up with something?
Okay, I'm going to write down a couple things here, and then you ask me a question that is just awful.
Right.
Ask me an awful, like a question that has that word in it somehow.
Right. Okay, you write that. I'll tell them. Here's a good story. I used to play that Upright, that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Upright side scroller. Yeah, it was a good one, right? You were playing the DS earlier, right? 4-player at once, like Gauntlet. It was really.
Do they have that on the?
They did not have it at the Rio.
But do they have it on the iPad? That's what I mean to say.
Oh, the iPad.
Because I do have the side-scrolling X-Men game on the iPad and NBA Jam.
True story.
Yeah, but the first thing I thought was like, "Where's the Turtles game?
Right.
Where's the Turtles game?"
The injustice of it all.
Nothing beats the
set list
blob.
isn't happening.
No,
so
set
you
list is happening. I just have to think of what word I want to put so you don't know what the bit is about.
Here's the interesting thing is that he didn't have a set list set. And I asked him, 2 weeks ago to do this show? You're in Vancouver shooting some show for USA.
Well, usually I will come up
like
with the set when I will come up with the set
Fairly
before,
Rapeable? What's the name of that show that you're on? It's Barely Legal?
Fairly Legal.
Fairly Legal.
Thank you for horrible errors.
You told me to say something horrible.
I feel like I'm going to get a letter from the president of the network. Mr. Jeffrey USA is going to write me.
Yeah, both people from the network listen to this show. That's the great thing about it. It's,
I don't know what that is. That was the sound effects of we don't know what's going on. Let's see. Okay.
So you bake your own bread. By the way, the next episode of the Live the Dork Forest is at the end of January. Is it the 31st, Mo?
Yes, it's the last Tuesday.
The last Tuesday. I got Andy Kindler coming.
Uh-oh.
And he likes an indie comic. Yeah, that's neat. And then I was going to ask Asterios to do a little stand-up comedy. And you know what he'll probably do? Some stand-up comedy, Baron Vaughn.
I don't know. Asterios, he'll probably will do that.
He'll wear.
Okay, so those are my bits. And make of them what you will, but just ask me a question like it's whatevs, just like it's totes nonchalant. Use the word totes if you can. Abbreviate things that need no abbreviates.
Is your brain a hoarder? Is that what's happening?
Jack, it's interesting you say that. Because I have been feeling like my brain is a hoarder because I just can't let go of certain information. Like it took me forever to figure out how to be in a relationship because every time I wanted to put that in the room, someone was like, "Sorry, DuckTales theme song lyrics," and that doesn't serve me as much.
With the ladies?
It was the ladies, because an argument is like, I'm leaving, you do not know how to communicate to somebody. Anything to say? Life is like a hurricane here in Duckburg. Excuse me? Race cars, lasers, aeroplanes. It's a duck blur. And then she walks out and slams the door, which is perfect because then you can jam out. Might solve a mystery or rewrite history. DuckTales. That's
nice work.
Thank you for being proven correct, Pavlov. No, I told you this bit's forever. I love those early Disney 90s theme songs like those because, and I'm sorry if you don't know them because it means that you miss the very definition of fucking going for it, because they don't pull any punches vocally and emotionally. You're like with there, you know. It's just like DuckTales, like that one, like burn down, rescue, burn down, oh tailspin, oh yeah, Darkwing Duck, let's get the Goof Troop, we will always be together, gummy bears bouncing here, like sadly, the closest our generation will ever get to a Marvin Gaye or Sam Cooke in their prime.
It's like a Stars on 45 sort of nice mix of mashup. That's nice work.
Exactly.
Do you remember Dragon Ball Z? Did you ever watch Dragon Ball Z?
No, I didn't really watch it, but I remember being like, Dragon Balls, and then I realized that was totally wrong. See,
Well,
already balls.
Balls
We
are
had an
hilarious.
intelligent conversation. I'm already at balls.
Gone. It's what I want to know is, have you ever heard of something called Kepler 22?
Kepler 22. Does anybody know what the heck this is? You know what to talk about. You know what I'm talking about, brother. Give me one of these.
What's happening?
Okay, Kepler 22. If you do not know, it is a new planet that has been discovered.
Oh, Class M
It's
planet.
somewhere like 500-600 light years away, twice the size of Earth, closer to the star it revolves around, which is cooler than the sun, so it evens out. Average temperature of 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Sorry if you're in a metric country and listening to this. 20
about
degrees
24.
Celsius. Okay, 24 degrees Celsius. And it has maybe water and land, and they're like, there has to be life on it. There's no way there can't be life on it. And I just think that's so exciting, because I can't think of a better way for our planet to unite than to hate another planet. You know, because there's no more racial epithets. There's no sexism, no racism. It's, you guys are good, they're fucking purple. And then we all get guns. Because if you ever got picked on in school, what stopped the picking on? New kid. There's an entire planet of new kids.
Wow, I hope they're not Muslim.
Oh.
Come on.
I
Call
don't
back.
even know what that's supposed to mean.
It doesn't mean it just, I guess I would hope that they were Muslim if I wanted to keep hating Muslims. That's
You
what I
hate
should've-
Muslims?
No. Well, let me take a finally, let me just admit
You're
it.
speaking in the proverbial voice of people that hate things.
Right.
Okay, so you're going with the angle of the bit of like that it's silly to hate that thing.
Right.
Okay, good.
There was a
Totally saved you
weird
on that one.
racist twist to it. It doesn't make it any better.
Honestly,
it turns out.
Honestly, that everything I say has a weird racist twist to it. I'm kind of
Why is
kind
that?
of like a Shyamalan movie that ends in racism. You're like, oh my God, everyone was a white supremacist. Everyone's trying to like, oh, what's going to happen? Oh, they're all Jews or something.
You're gonna have to write that down.
Ah, man, what happened to him?
Here's the
I
good
feel
news.
so bad for him because what was that movie, Devil, that he produced? I went to see a movie and they showed a preview for Devil, and it just said produced by M. Night Shyamalan. Audible gasp. No, a groan like, people are tired of him. And you know what? He's not a bad director. Like visually, he knows what he's doing, but he just needs to stop writing his movies. Tyler Perry could do the same thing, opposite end of the spectrum,
Right.
but he could do the same thing.
Adam Sandler. Take a break, my friend.
Did he write Jack and Jill?
Eddie. I think he did. And I think, wasn't it about a brother and sister with a sexual twist?
Yeah, and
No, that's
because
not
he
true.
plays his own sister. Adam Sandler's trying to get that Eddie Murphy cachet.
He's gonna wear a giant fat suit.
Just instead of
Or he's
boobs.
gonna be-
Here's a weird little thing. Okay, so there's a gentleman named Craig Kilborn
I'm familiar with his work.
who's apparently, I've never met the man, is the most awful person ever. He's not well liked.
Okay.
In the movie Old School, he plays the boyfriend of Ellen Pompeo.
Who is she?
She's the girl in Old School. She's the woman in Old
Nice
School that
work.
Luke Wilson falls
Okay,
for. Isn't
okay.
she's on Grey's Anatomy or something right now?
I got that movie mixed up with Back to School, which is a
Yeah,
Rodney Dangerfield
totally.
movie from the 12th century.
Totally different.
Yeah.
That's an older school. Boom. But there's this one scene where I guess there's some pool party. It's right before Will Ferrell gets tranked in the neck by Sean William Scott. And I guess there's some hot waitress that's working at the party, and there's a scene where Craig Kilborn's in the bathroom with this woman, and he kisses her right as Luke Wilson walks in, and he's like, "Oh, you're gonna tell? Guys don't tell. Guys don't tell, right?" Watch that scene though. The kiss, it couldn't be more awkward. It is. She
so does not wish to be touched.
A physical revulsion, and that's the best take. That's what I thought. Like, she's disgusted by him, but they're like, well, that's the one where she didn't vomit. That's the one that's going in the movie.
Oh, that is. You know, whenever I saw Jerry Maguire and I saw Jay Moore in Jerry Maguire, I was like, that guy's not acting. I think he's actually a tool. And
boom, boom.
Again, I don't know these people.
Taking it to Jay Moore and
I'm taking it for Jay. I don't know if you know this. Jay Moore is a Muslim. He's a secret Muslim.
He's a Morslam. I always combine words like it's going to make everything funny, and it works every now and then.
And I think that this is the perfect time to make this segue. There's something about
my last joke.
Your last joke. Let's set it up.
This is great. It's going to be great, amazingly awkward. Go ahead.
It's going to be a great way of setting this up because a child just walked in.
Totally
in other news, let's not talk about how a lot of comics will end a set. Did you want to tell it euphemistically, or did you just want to say...
There's no euphemisms.
There's no euphemisms.
No, there's no euphemisms. Oh, here's the dumbest
You're
thing.
right, it only works occasionally.
Yeah, exactly. Are we childless?
So, I think we are.
Yeah, it works.
Hey, Baron,
yeah.
Have you ever sucked a dick?
No, I haven't, and I don't really want to. But
there's my defense. It is written down.
So interesting you asked that, Jackie. I never have, and I don't really want to, but what if I have to? Right. It's a recession, and my homophobia is trumped by my need to be prepared. Plus, I think I'd be great. Okay, because
quite honestly,
I think I'd be great because I have a penis and I've gotten a blowjob, and any gentleman that's ever given instructions during a blowjob is really going, here's what I do.
That might be my favorite line ever.
Unfortunately, written by Jonah Ray.
Oh, no, that's all right.
That's okay. He gave it to me. And I was like, oh, I'm taking that. He's like, yeah, do it. Because the penis is very simple. The penis is like an office building. You know what you have to do. You go there. It's a part of town you avoid. You go, you push your button, do your business, and you get out of there before traffic. But if a vagina is more complicated, if a vagina was a building, it would be a museum. Because they're all so different. And sometimes I stand outside overwhelmed, like, how do I get in there? I just want to see some art. And then a voice says to me, but the building is also art. Because, okay, and here's the closer. Here's the closer, Jackie. You ready for this one? All right. Because the penis, I don't know how to say that. The penis needs all the help it can get because the penis, by definition, is depressed. It is bipolar.
Oh.
Yes. I know you're wondering why. Because the penis spends, this is a visual gag, so I'm sorry, everybody listening. But the penis spends most of its time lumped over, just like, what am I gonna do? Why hast thou forsaken me? I can't even lift my head. I only have energy for puns. One tear. And then an erection is the penis going, you know what? I am somebody. Today's the first day of the rest of my life. I'm going to get out there and take life by the horns. But first, some calisthenics. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Turn down the machine. 3 and 4. 1 and 2. Slow the machine down. I'm going to throw up. Slow the machine down. I'm going to vomit. Oh, God. I can't clean this up. I have no arms. And that's the penis joke.
Yay, and then they carry you off the stage on their shoulders. Because you've done the best dick joke ever. That's the greatest joke in the world. You've done vital work. Can people go to baronvaughn.com?
They can go to baronvaughn.com.
They can follow you on Twitter?
They can follow me on Twitter.
They can follow. They can. What is your Twitter handle?
My Twitter. This is something I thought was clever, but it just confuses everyone. It's Bar Von Black. It's B
I
as
will
in
link
boy, A-R, V as in Victor, O-N, B as in boy, L-A-Q.
A lot of silence on that one. But what I'll do is I will link it, and the American public will follow you. And when not following you on Twitter, they should just follow you around, right? That gets less.
Yeah, if they
less
want an
positive.
elbow to the face, they want me to Tony Jaw them upside the head. That's for anyone that saw The Protector and or Ong Bak.
And they can watch you on USA on Barely Legal.
Fairly
Fuck, I'm so sorry.
Barely Legal is a totally different life. That I'm trying to forget about.
Fairly Legal.
Yeah,
it is a
Fairly.
Drop Dead Diva, so you win.
Well-
and not that I don't watch both of them, because
Well, I know you don't watch mine because you haven't got the title right.
no, I don't get the title of anything right.
The drop. Oh, okay. You always get the title wrong.
You know why? It's just jackassery. We're gonna end with a whimper here, Baron.
I have perpetual falsetto. It's the thing that happens every now and then. For emphasis, I have to go.
Baron's gonna keep talking for 20 minutes. Thank
No,
you
no, no.
so much for coming to the Live
Jackie,
the Dork
thank you.
Forest. Have a good one, man. Thank you. Have a good night, you guys. Thanks for tuning.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat. My hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that? If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?